Desi Taylor is founder and executive director at Kalamazoo Startup Center, a bookkeeping service dedicated to serving local entrepreneurs. I first met Desi through 1 Million Cups, a startup entrepreneurship group. An interesting fact is that she and I share the same birthday. Now, she's not saying how old she is, so we'll just say she's 25. So, Desi, what was your first instrument? Was it a guitar?
I actually started playing piano at the age of 5. My grandmother insisted on piano lessons and stuck with it throughout most of my life. I actually started playing oboe as well in middle school band and didn't actually pick up a guitar until I was about 12 or 13.
Great. And did you have any formal training or did you just take music in school?
So I was formally trained on piano for most of my life. And oboe, I also was in the school band, so there was some formal training there. Guitar was mostly all self-taught, though. I had picked up a classical guitar around age 12, and it just felt really natural. And one of my family members at the time was like, you should have this. Yeah, take it. And so I started getting into acoustic classical style guitar. And then actually went and saw the movie Freaky Friday when I was 13, and all of a sudden definitely wanted to be in a rock band, right? And so I switched to electric and kind of went back and forth between acoustic and electric for a little while. But most of my guitar was self-taught, yeah.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite music or your favorite song to play?
Oh, man. It really depends on my mood. I don't know if I have a favorite per se. I spent a lot of time as a music director at a camp, and so I did a lot of camp songs / teen pop, tween pop songs for the kids, which was fun. But I love playing a lot of older songs too. I learned how to play Bohemian Rhapsody on the piano, which was pretty fun. But I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite song to play.
Would you say that learning music is still important even if you cannot afford lessons or choose to learn on your own?
Learning music is always important. I think, there's so much value that comes from the theory, the discipline, the refining your skills and, opening up your world to all different types of music and, really just focusing on breaking bigger things down into smaller chunks, measure by measure. And I think that really translates to a lot of areas of life. And so, whether you can afford formal lessons or not, I encourage, just about anybody to try some sort of music education. There's a lot of great resources nowadays on the internet. And I think that now more than ever, it's accessible to a lot of people. So definitely, I think anybody who has the desire to learn an instrument should follow their heart.
What are your thoughts about music as a source of hope and inspiration to others?
I mean, it's a universal language, right? So, music is so powerful. It can move an entire crowd, with a few simple chords. And I think that anything that has that kind of emotional impact over a person can be used in all sorts of avenues, in all sorts of facets. And using music as a source of hope and inspiration is really the end goal, a lot of the time. And at least I think it should be. It's such a powerful tool. Why not use it for good and unity and bringing people together, and just that common shared emotion between listeners is so powerful. I think that, it should definitely be used as much as possible for positive reasons.
Do you think more lessons would have benefited you?
I think I had a good amount of lessons for my own purposes. I think I might have been more interested in diving into more songwriting lessons or even more vocal lessons. I dabbled a little bit with vocal lessons, but I really just followed my heart. And at the same time, I think not having those lessons did benefit me in a way, because I didn't feel restrained to, a certain format or a certain chord progression. I just kind of went with the flow when I was writing songs, when I was writing my album. It was really just did what I felt like and liked how it turned out, and really was just freely creative with the whole process.
Excellent. Let's talk about your bookkeeping business. Most people wouldn't even dare to start a business, and you've been pretty successful now. What gave you the idea to start the business, and had you tried other entrepreneurial ventures in the past?
Yeah. So I've had a few different entrepreneurial ventures. Funny enough, the first one was really my music career, honestly. As I mentioned, I self-taught myself on guitar and really just dove into that. And I started playing shows professionally out at bars when I was 16, I want to say. And there was a lot of times when I couldn't even be there because I was under 18. And so I had to have a parent and legal guardian with me with a big X over my hand. So I really started pretty young, self-promoting, reaching out to different venues, writing songs, managing the band, coordinating logistics, doing the marketing, reading over contracts with bars. I really got that kind of entrepreneurial experience firsthand as a result of my music career, which I did that for a long time. I actually played professionally from age 16 through about probably 24, 25, somewhere in that range. I kind of died down a little bit. My life shifted directions, and I stopped doing music quite as much. But in addition to that, I also had a travel business for a little while. When I was doing that for about 5 years, and then COVID hit, and COVID and a travel business don't necessarily go very well together. So I had that on pause, and as part of the running my travel business and my experience with music, a lot of that came down to tracking the finances and making sure the accounting and the bookkeeping side was well done, and I really understood that portion of it. I had some really great mentors in that area that helped me out and really guided me and showed me the ropes. And after COVID, the travel business was on pause. I was kind of like, what am I going to do next? And I started talking with a bunch of my friends that also had businesses, and found that that was one area that was very often overlooked. People didn't really understand the bookkeeping side of it. It's very complex, more complex than a lot of people may realize. And I just found that my entrepreneur friends needed help in this area, and so I started helping out with the bookkeeping side. Did it for one business, did it for another business, did it for another business, and said, there's a market here. There's definitely a niche. It's an area that's not very well served, I guess, specific to new businesses and entrepreneurs and building businesses from the ground up and understanding the fundamentals of how everything works with managing finances and organization. And so in a way, the business kind of started itself. And since we officially opened our doors in July of 2021, it's just been like nonstop. I mean, there's such a need for this type of services directed toward this niche of entrepreneur. And it's been really exciting to be a part of.
Great. What are your company's current sales? So you said they're continuing to grow, and I think at 1 million you said you had managed over $20 million of revenue across all clients in 2024?
Yeah, now in September of 2025, it's closer to 50 or 55 million now.
Wow.
So it's definitely been continuing to grow.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. What's your best source of leads?
Referrals, word of mouth, community connections, providing high quality service, and that service, your reputation precedes you. And we do very little advertising, as a whole, as a company. It's all about connecting with other entrepreneurial support organizations, other technical assistance providers, other organizations that are, working in this type of arena, and, really just being there and being a resource for people. And as I said, doing really quality work sells itself.
Awesome. Oh, I wanted to shift focus to how learning music gave you resilience, helping you to overcome failures and adversity. Can you give me some examples of either in your own life or in the business, the resilience and discipline that you acquired learning to play the guitar and or the other instruments gave you an edge over maybe other individuals who didn't come from a musical background? How has this advantage translated into your current leadership role for the Kalamazoo Startup Center?
It's a great question. Two parts to the answer. Obviously, when I was a child learning the piano, there were many days that I did not want to practice. And I still had to get my 30 minutes in, whether I liked it or not. So that really taught me, you got to do what you got to do, and the discipline portion of that. As I got older and it became more of a career as opposed to a obligation, in a sense, I learned a lot about advocating for myself, not being afraid of being told no. I would literally just go door to door to different bars. I was out in Denver for a lot of the time. I was playing music, just calling places nonstop. Hey, do you have live music? Hey, can I come play there? I'll come play you a song as a sample. Here's my demo. Really just not being afraid to put myself out there and not being afraid to hear no. I think I kind of lost that fear of rejection. I'm just going to ask for, what the goal that I have. I'm going to ask for what I want. And if you say no, you say no. And if you say no, I'll move on with my life, And also, too, I think in that same sense, I've had a lot of really great shows, a lot of really fun shows, but on the same time, I've had a lot of not so great shows. I've had a lot of, bad performances. Not a lot, but I've had, it happens from time to time, right? You finish a set and you're like, oh, that really wasn't my best. And you just focus on, okay, what can we learn from this? How can we practice more? What do we need to practice more? How can we improve? How are we going to do better next time? And just not letting it knock you down, really just staying focused and envisioning what you want to be, how you want it to sound, and you don't stop working until it's how you want it. It sounds, what you dreamed. Same with business.
What was the biggest business setback that you ever overcame? How did you flip a negative into a positive?
COVID. It's not related to Kalamazoo Startup Center per se, but my travel business, Clue Venture, COVID hit right when we were really ramping up and we were really gaining a lot of momentum, and it was an abrupt stop. Like, we were sending people all over the world, and all of a sudden, overnight, the entire business came to a halt, completely outside of our control. And we didn't know when it was going to pick back up, if it was going to pick back up. We tried to pivot, a little bit, and we focused on supporting local businesses and local travel. But at some point, I just had to decide it's time to hang this up. There were a lot of other life things going on where it just made sense to move on. And I'm glad I did, because here we are.
Yeah. Did music help you to overcome another struggle in your life, such as low point, depression, or grief, maybe loss of a loved one?
Yeah, 100%. I didn't necessarily have the easiest childhood growing up, and I found a lot of refuge in writing songs, writing music. Pretty much my whole album was written between the ages of 16 and 19, I want to say. And I honestly, it really helped get me through, a lot of that time. Having that as an outlet, having that as a source of release in a way, and sorry, I have to edit that out. Writing music gave me a lot of comfort. It was a way to express your emotions, express your sadness, your grief, your frustration in a way that you're also able to connect with people at the same time. And that was really powerful for me when I was really into writing songs at that time of my life.
One of your pillars of service you listed for Kalamazoo Startup Center is being visionary. How does the creativity that you developed from learning music allow you to be visionary?
It's a great question. So, one of our 3 pillars at Kalamazoo Startup Center is to be visionary, as you mentioned, and that means seeing the possibilities, seeing the potential. If somebody has a goal, it's okay, how are we going to get there? And a lot of my experience with music is the same thing. I have this sound, I have this song in my head. How are we going to make it happen? And anything is possible, if you try enough ways, to an extent, right? And it's just finding a creative solution to get from point A to point B. And I think that definitely translates to the business world as well, because business is a lot of times solving problems, establishing systems, getting routines, getting into a flow, and also keeping an eye out for other goals that you want to achieve. How do we need to tweak the performance in a way, in order to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish? It's very hand in hand. I think it translates very much so.
Has the creativity that you developed from performing music or writing music helped you with the creativity in finance and putting together business deals?
Yes. Yeah, I would say so. Music, at the end of the day, it's very logical. There's patterns, there's, processes. It's very creative process at the same time, but at the end of the day, it comes down to fundamentals and logic and patterns, right? And I feel like bookkeeping and accounting is similar, in a lot of ways. There's always an answer, and how you get to it is often more so of the question than what is the answer. I've found, from time to time. And, really at the end of the day, a lot of what we do, yes, there's a lot of logic and accounting and like the finance side in it, but really it's about connecting with people. It's about connecting with business owners, and music was, very similar. Writing music, you're connecting with the listeners, you're connecting with the audience members when you're performing. You're finding ways to find similarities, between yourself and the person listening in a roundabout sense, and finding ways to communicate your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions, and translating that to working with business owners really does come down to a lot of the communication side and connecting with them, and making them feel that this is a safe space where you can ask questions, you can be vulnerable, you can not be afraid of judgment from us, or at the end of the day, we're here to help grow your business, and it does come down to connection a lot of the time, same as music.
Excellent. I was actually at the gym a few days ago, and one of the news networks had something about computer science grads facing a tough job market because of AI, which I found a little bit ironic since that was my degree originally. It seems like a lot of people in various fields are worried right now about the effect that AI will have on the job market for recent college grads. A lot of parents are feeling nervous about career choices for their children. And you know, I hear all the time, we're so busy, and we don't have time to learn music. And it's like, you know, that's the thing that's going to develop your child's creativity to think outside of the box in a rapidly changing world and a rapidly changing job market. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely one of the tools. I think that, you know, learning music has many, many, many benefits. And, you know, as I mentioned before, like those skills that you learn throughout the process of learning music really translate to many different areas of life. And that's something that, I mean, I don't see AI necessarily replacing that human connection and the thought process and the creativity and the beauty of creation and creating with others, you know, and that's really one of my favorite things about music, you know, just having an idea, being in a room with a bunch of different people and kind of playing off of each other's ideas about the song. You know, what if we throw this riff in there? What if we do this chord progression instead? What if we, you know, repeat the chorus with an echo at the end? You know, like there's a lot of different collaboration that goes into the creation process too. And, you know, that's something that's so truly human and genuine that I don't see AI, you know, realistically being able to recreate or replace that type of emotional connection. I think now it's more important than ever. So yeah, learn music, do it.
Let's talk for a moment about what discipline of learning music or composing music has done for your concentration and focus. I think that concentration and focus is becoming a scarcer commodity these days. I've often told my students that I don't think that Beethoven could have written his most complex compositions if he would have had a cell phone, because there would have been too many interruptions and notifications. And there's a lot of books already being written about this topic, that our brains are becoming like Swiss cheese and how our attention span has become so fragmented by these notifications and short content and the constant search for the next social media dopamine hit. This is one of the reasons I like these interviews, is because sometimes people are getting burned out on the sound bites and short content only, and sometimes they want a deeper dive on a topic before making important decisions about things that are financial or, in this case, musical instruments and lessons. Would you agree that in creating a business plan or an effective marketing campaign, that your ability to focus for an extended length of time is critical?
I think it's more important to be focused on the long-term goals. And as long as you have that end goal in mind, if you need to break up the little steps into chunks and do little pieces at a time in order to make progress toward your long goal, great. I have to do that a lot. Honestly, concentration is something I personally struggle with. But music really did help me with that. I think there's a lot to be said about getting into that flow state. You know, when you're practicing, when you're performing, when you're playing music, you reach a point when it's kind of outside of yourself, right? And man, back when I was doing it a lot more than I get the opportunity to do now, I would just play for hours and hours and hours, and I didn't want to do anything else. And I just couldn't think about anything except how to best communicate this one line I've got stuck in my head, you know, or this one riff that I want to figure out the perfect way to play it. And I would just sit for hours and days sometimes and just like practice nonstop. And, you know, there's really a lot to be said about that type of locked in focus. And, you know, this day and age, there's not a lot of non-tech opportunities that are, I guess, at the top of people's brains a lot of the time. Oh, wait, I didn't want to say that. Take that out. What was I saying?
Oh, I was just kind of smiling, like you're agreeing, like, okay, she's a real musician because she's obsessive, and all musicians are obsessive. Ask me, ask John.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I'm super OCD. You know, I get fixated on the smallest of details. And yeah, when I lock into something or when I want to concentrate on something, it's like all I can think about. And music was really good outlet for that, for me anyway. It can be tricky these days to focus as much with all the distractions.
It's hard to be present, to be mindful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's connecting to that flow state.
Yeah, and I feel like music really has the ability to take people out of the real world and into that flow state, which is so magical. It's one of the magical things about it.
Music trains us to follow instincts and not just rules. In this series, we've talked about intuition and following hunches. Performing music, writing music, and music improvisation helps us to exercise our ability to tap into intuition. In an earlier episode of this series, I talked about Albert Einstein. Einstein had said his general theory of relativity started with an intuitive hunch. He had also stated that if he had not been a physicist, he would have been a musician, and he saw his own violin playing as important to his ability to reimagine or reframe complex problems. I really think that iPhones 2 had been a hunch. How would someone like Steve Jobs have any idea what to create before these things even existed? And Steve Jobs also loved music and the arts, so that's how we got iTunes and Apple Music and so forth. As far as following your own hunches about things, what was it that led you into entrepreneurship? I guess you kind of touched that you just were very driven as a musician and it just seemed natural to you. But I mean, there was no way you could have known that you would succeed, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, I just loved doing it. It just felt right. And it's just something I wanted to do more of. And my first, I guess, public performance out in the world that wasn't, a school talent show or something of that nature, was actually my graduation night. And we were out at a restaurant and there was an open mic going on. So I was 17. I guess I said earlier 16, but I was 17. There was an open mic going on and my family and friends pushed me up there, naturally against my will. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll play a couple songs. And the guy running the open mic was like, hey now, like you're pretty good. You should come back, do this again. He's like, I play the same open mic set at 2 other restaurants, 2 other days a week. You should come to those ones and play, a couple songs too. And so I started, okay, sure, I'll come along. I just, I like doing it. It's fun. And that really catapulted my own career, just being involved in the open mics and, going to different restaurants and bars. And it just, I started saying, hey, this is fun. I want to keep going with this. And it led to essentially a full-fledged music career for a long time. But as far as hunches, I think when you get an idea or an inspiration, follow that. That's how a lot of the best things are created. And if it's working and if you're enjoying it, keep going.
Great. Yeah, I started in the corporate world and I kind of became disenchanted through various phases of economic downturn and projects failing, and I kind of felt like always sort of disconnected from my work, like it could just be kind of thrown away. And when I came back to my real passion of music, all that changed. That it's like, wow, I'm doing something that no one can throw away. No one can throw away teaching children. Following my passion too, I found the same, that was the key for me. And I think you kind of touched that your friends and family were supportive of you on your musical journey. Were they also supportive of you on your entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, my parents have always been extremely supportive of all of my whims, I guess, to a degree. But my travel business that I started up, literally I opened it with my parents' credit card. They let me use the credit card. Granted, I paid it off myself, right? But I wouldn't have been able to really get off the ground without their trust and their support. And, I at the end of the day, did pay everything back, paid everything myself, covered all of the expenses. But without that initial trust and without that initial spark, I guess, I don't know if I'd be where I am today, even that small act. And, even, looking as I, continue the entrepreneurial journey, and, my family now has been, extremely supportive. My partner, does, my partner now is so supportive. It's insane. I would not be where I am today without all of the support of my friends and family.
Great. Have you ever had a staff member or friend that ever thought, what is Desi talking about? Have you ever had ideas that were kind of out there that were not seemingly obvious to other people at first, that maybe took you longer to verbalize or flesh out the details, but in the end these ideas turned out to be great ideas?
They turned out to be great ideas. I don't know, that's up to interpretation, but I feel like most of my ideas start out with something that's kind of hard to communicate to other people. So really focusing on how can I take this crazy concept, this very abstract thought, and get other people on board. It's always been something that I have had to do. So I had a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, this whole series was one of those ideas. Like, John's like, what are you talking about, dude? Any other benefits of music background helping you in your life that we didn't cover?
I think we touched on most of it. It's just the discipline, the communication, the connection, the really just putting yourself out there and not really being afraid of what other people think. You make music to make music. I made my album because it's what I needed to express at the time, and it wasn't so much about, well, I hope people like it. I hope that this resonates. And it wasn't even going into it with the thought of, I hope this is successful. It wasn't even that. It was just a bigger calling. Like, I need to just make this music for the sake of making it. And really not being afraid to be your true, authentic self is valuable, not only in music, not only in life, but in business too. Knowing what you want, knowing what you can do, and really just, creating your own path and living for yourself and your loved ones and the bigger goal and your community, and really just, finding a way to tie everything together to create something beautiful is one of the best things about life, in my opinion.
Wow, that was profound, actually.
Thanks.
I've had some people that have told me that I'm a little out there, a little weird, but I'm fine with that now. I do me, so.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I really just love the beauty of creation, whether that be music, business, some crazy scheme. I don't know, not schemes, but
yeah.
Can I redo that part?
Sure.
I don't want to say
Sure,
schemes.
no, yeah.
I don't want to be scheming. People think I'm scheming. Nothing like that. But no, at the end of the day, I really do just love the beauty of creation, whether that be music, whether that be business, whether that be relationships. It's just really part of the magic of life.
Well said. Desi, you're also a parent. I think your children are still pretty young, if I remember. What insight would you give to parents and young people about how learning music can grow their future in unexpected and unplanned ways? maybe that they too can climb a mountain in their life that most people would simply take a pass on or give up quickly on their idea and would instead just settle for a less satisfying and less fulfilling life.
What would I tell parents of young kids?
Yeah, like what insight would you give them about how learning music can lead to things that are unexpected but great?
You know, when you start your kids on piano lessons or whatever instrument of your choosing, they're probably not going to turn out as a professional musician, right? Like the chances of that are fairly low, and it's a small percentage of people who do end up taking that route and taking it successfully, right? And so it's not really going into the process with the expectation of this is what they're going to do for the rest of their life, right? It's going into the process with the expectation of what values are they going to learn from this, and really developing the discipline, the character, the communication aspect is worth its weight in gold, really.
On my side, my mother said, don't be a teacher. And she also complained that piano lessons were expensive. So it's very ironic that I'm a piano teacher.
Yeah, neither one of my parents play any instruments or are very musical. It skipped a generation, I think.
Yeah, same.
My grandmother.
It was like my dad's siblings were the musicians. Like my mom's practically tone deaf, God bless her. But,
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a lot of musicians in the family. Like my grandmother was very involved in music. I've got some great uncles on my mom's side that are very, very involved in music as well. And I think, at the end of the day, it is in my blood to an extent. And I'm really happy that my family advocated for me at a young age and insisted on me starting lessons and sticking with it, as much as it was like pulling teeth, getting me to practice sometimes as a kid. The older I get, the more I just look back and say, wow, my life would be so different if I hadn't taken piano lessons my whole life, honestly.
Oh,
just no
very
question.
well said.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for being here, Desi, and we continue to wish you success with the Kalamazoo Startup Center and with all your endeavors.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.